The Batman dropped earlier this year to widespread excitement from DC fans, and like many other movies, the superhero caper included a few Easter eggs and references to potential future projects and characters. One of the biggest references during the movie was that of Red Hood, which came in the form of a Halloween costume. Today, we are discussing the Batman's Red Hood reference, which is probably the movie's best future tease. Stay with us. Let's get straight into it then. What's going on? As we know, superhero movies continually drop teases as to what we can expect in the future, and The Batman is no different. Directed by Matt Reeves, the movie features a pretty obvious reference to Red Hood, the alias used by multiple DC characters in the past. At the start of the movie, we see a boy dressed in a red ninja costume, which also features a red hood. The boy is playing with his father at the beginning of the film, who we then see head out to go trick-or-treating. The boy is actually the son of Mayor Mitchell, who, as we know, plays a pretty significant role in the movie. Mitchell is murdered by the Riddler, which could be set to send the boy into a spiral. Later on, Batman himself visits the scene and realizes what this whole thing means for Mayor Mitchell's son. However, the opening isn't the only time we see his son. He appears a couple more times throughout the movie, which suggests he could be set for a pretty big role himself further down the line. We see him again during his father's funeral, with Bruce Wayne showing up to maintain a watchful eye over the young Mitchell boy. I mean, he knows what he's going through, right? He shows up again during the movie's finale at Gotham Square Garden, but it is the sequence with Bruce Wayne at the funeral which had fans talking. What did you make of the Batman? So, what did the scene mean? Let's see. Well, we know that Bruce Wayne probably sees the mayor's son as someone he needs to watch out for, given the fact that his own parents were murdered. I mean, his whole mission as Batman is to prevent kids from experiencing loss, right? This is Bruce Wayne's whole shtick in the comics. We see him adopt Dick Grayson after his parents are killed in a circus accident, partly out of sympathy, but also out of guilt that he couldn't do anything to stop it. Grayson, as we know, grows up to be Robin, so we know there is a path for Bruce Wayne's prodigies to grow up and become superheroes in their own right. Could this be in store for the Mitchell boy? Jason Todd was also Robin as the mantle was passed on, but after he was killed by the Joker, he was then resurrected by Lazarus Pitt, taking the Red Hood persona, a persona which was formerly the Joker. This version is a vigilante crime fighter, which could be the trajectory we see for the mayor's son. I mean, the red costume at the start could be seen as something of a prediction as to what's to come, and if he is, in fact, to become Reeves' first Robin incarnation, there's a couple of ways he could choose to go with it. What do you guys make of all of this? Could the mayor's son become Red Hood? How could the mayor's son become Red Hood then? Stay tuned to find out. Well, one of the biggest clues is the fact that the boy remains nameless throughout the film, which suggests Reeves could be waiting to figure out which of Robin's identities he is going to appear as. We know Reeves is willing to make changes to characters, with some taking quite small steps, sticking to the source material quite closely, whilst others are quite the opposite. We also know that the blueprint for Robin is a broken, beaten down boy who has been failed throughout his life. So who better than to step into the void than the mayor's son? Bruce Wayne's MO is taking on boys who have been failed by the system to not only help them, but to also help them find the vengeance they seek. If it is Reeves' intention to make the character the first Robin/Red Hood, then the foundation has clearly been laid for the boy wronged to turn into a crime-fighting sidekick. However, if this is to take place, then we probably won't see it for another couple of films, as it is still way too early for a Red Hood to show up in the form that we know. For our money though, the red ninja costume is more than likely to be the first inkling of a Red Hood appearance in Reeves' Batverse. What do you guys think? Let us know below. Next up, we're discussing the impact of The Dark Knight Rises 10 years on. The iconic third movie in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy was released almost 10 years ago to the day, July 20th, 2012. One of the most highly anticipated movies of that particular year, the lead up to the film's release saw multiple theories and hypothetical scenarios, none more so than how Nolan would handle the Joker after Heath Ledger's untimely passing. All of the Dark Knight's characters returned, as well as a slew of notable acting talent such as Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Marion Cotillard, and the film was a bona fide success. It made more than $1 billion globally. But how has time been on the movie? Well, it's still pretty good, of course, but even back then, it didn't hit the heights The Dark Knight or others did. And some have even suggested there were a few pretty big flaws in the premise. However, it fits as the conclusion to Nolan's films pretty well, but doesn't particularly stand on its own, as well as the first two in the trilogy do. Some have said it's only really ever brought up as a side note when fans are discussing the other two, which could be pretty harsh. Some of the performances are excellent, which means that The Dark Knight Rises is still one of the most rewatchable movies in the Batman franchise. What is your favorite Batman film in the Nolan trilogy? Let us know in the comments. DC has been discussing the political leanings of an old Batman foe now. Stay tuned. With this week's release of the third issue of Batman Fortress, DC has been discussing how an old enemy of Batman, Lex Luthor, is actually a Republican. Portrayed as the President of the United States in the latest comic, we see Batman himself in the Oval Office. Luthor actually won the presidency back in 2000 when he took on and beat Al Gore and George Bush, gaining the keys to the White House for his The Tomorrow Party. However, it was never confirmed as to whether he was a Republican or Democrat, basically to avoid awkward fan discussions. But in the latest comic, it seems as though DC and Gary Whitta, the comic's author, are now comfortable attaching Luthor to a party, as in the latest release, he has made it clear which party he heads up. Responding to a nuclear threat in California, Luthor callously responds, "Well, I'm a Republican. It's not like they were ever going to vote for me anyway." Wow. Luthor then went on to claim a strike in the western state could actually reshape the electoral map quite favorably, suggesting he is happy to let the nuclear strike go ahead. This is quite the change of pace for DC, which has traditionally stayed away from aligning its heroes and villains with real-life political parties. What do you guys make of this? And finally, DC have been criticized for their Comic-Con appearance. Although it included a sneak peek of a couple of upcoming films, the DC panel at San Diego's Comic-Con over the weekend was still seen as a disappointment. Yes, they provided a look at their two new live-action movies, but that was basically all. DC offered no information on their other upcoming projects, which was a bit of a disappointment for fans. A rumor has swirled in the build-up to the weekend, which suggested Henry Cavill would be stopping by, but that never materialized. However, the panel had never promised anything other than what they provided. So, why are fans so annoyed? Well, some wanted more announcements as to upcoming projects, not just a look at already announced movies. Black Adam lead, Dwayne Johnson, was actually in attendance, and DC detractors have suggested they could have had Cavill appear on stage as well, to tease the upcoming fight between Johnson's character and Cavill's Superman. I mean, would it have been so difficult for DC to announce some other upcoming shows and movies? They clearly know what they have in the pipeline and could have used the event to drum up excitement for other future projects. Were any of you guys in attendance at San Diego Comic-Con? Let us know how it was below. As usual, thanks for tuning in today, and remember to stop by again next time for some more fun and games. And why not do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video, whilst also subscribing to our channel so you don't miss out on more great content going forward. Adios, amigos.